And TIA Small Cell and DAS Workshop was all about deploying new networks in the field to maximize return on investment with efficient and demand-ready networks. Alan Dixon, Enterprise Account Executive at H&M Networks, was part of the panel discussions about the challenges, best practices, and latest technologies for indoor and outdoor densified network deployment. And Alan, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. Give us an example of a converged infrastructure solution enabling in-building wireless.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. So a good example is that there's an SEC football team, or SEC school, that has just installed a new network. So what they were planning to do is install separate networks to handle multiple applications. So there would be a dedicated network for their wireless LAN. There'd be a dedicated network for their turnstile count. There'd be a dedicated network for point of sale, for for cellular service, for all the different things that are required to make that game day experience good for the fan that's in the seats. What they were able to do was to go to a solution called a passive optical LAN. And that passive optical LAN took all of those individual networks that they had budgeted for and condensed them into a single network that would allow them to do a lot of different things, which save space. They had installed 3-foot ladder racks that went around the entire stadium to accommodate all the cables that they expected to use for this multiple series of systems that they were going to install. They ended up only using about 8 inches of that ladder rack because they went to this converged solution. It's a fiber-based solution that allows the endpoints, it converts the incoming signal to a passive optical networking protocol, and then it runs it back to a central place where it is sort of demystified and put back into its organic structure. But it saves time, it saves space, and it saved a ton of money.
Now, of course, deploying in-building wireless is very costly for operators, for premise owners, for wireless service providers. Is network demand putting enterprise OpEx over the top?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of key verticals that if you look at, that these guys are suffering enormously from the impact of what's going on with the user experience. So if you look at hospitality and higher education in particular, those guys are getting a double whammy. So what has happened is that the use of these connected devices has replaced a traditional income source for them. So if you look at hotels in particular, when was the last time that you used your room phone to call home and check on somebody? You don't. You use your cell phone. So that revenue that they used to realize from the room phone has gone away. Now you're going to add insult to injury because you're going to come to them and you're going to demand that you get Wi-Fi so that you can use Netflix so you don't have to use their pay-per-view system. So they're being robbed in a couple of different ways. They feel like they're being robbed in a couple of different ways because not only did they lose that revenue, but now they have to build out this ever-expanding network to be able to support your appetites once you're inside their facility. It's very difficult for them to get the return on that kind of investment, so they are really getting pounded by the user experience. Same thing has happened in higher education. They're building out these super dense Wi-Fi networks to support the user experience for their students. But in reality, the students aren't using that network for any kind of distance learning or to enhance the learning experience. They're watching YouTube while they're in class, and they're watching Netflix when they get back to their dorms. They've also suffered from a loss of revenue because those room phones that used to be in there so that you could call the dorm, they don't exist anymore. People are using their cell phones, they're using Skype on their computers, they're using a lot of different ways to communicate, but it's ways that escape the attention of the university from a revenue standpoint. So the user demand is forcing them to build out networks that is becoming increasingly hard to justify from a return on investment standpoint.
What's GFast?
GFast is a way of using existing DSL cabling to create higher bandwidth than what DSL was originally being able to support.
So in the importance of leveraging legacy copper infrastructure for in-building wireless, what's the relationship between that function and GFast?
So I think that anytime you build a network, you have to make a choice. We like to say that you've got good, fast, and you've got cheap. You can pick any two. So there's nothing wrong with picking cheap. And picking cheap means that you're able, let's not call it cheap, let's call it cost effective. You have to be cost effective. There's nothing wrong with taking advantage of the existing infrastructure that you have to deliver a new service. GFast offers you an opportunity to reuse your existing infrastructure to deliver a next generation service. It's a great way to do things.
Alan, TIA thanks you very much for participating in the DAS and Small Cell Workshop, and thanks for your time here as well.
Happy to do it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alan.